Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Awesome Women. And today I'm talking to Hollie Hyde, who's an awesome woman. Hi Hollie, thanks for coming along today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So you and me have chatted before, Hollie. I think we had an initial conversation which went on for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
We'll try and keep it shorter than that today, but just as interesting. So you're autistic, you're an autistic woman, and you're also a parent. So do you want to tell us a little bit about maybe your own journey, or a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I have instantly forgotten every single word that exists in in the English language. Um, I I I could start off with when I first found out I was autistic, like 3 or 4 years ago. But that's kind of the end
Yeah.
of the. That's like the end point. I probably followed a trajectory of a lot of uh, autistic women and men, indeed, and it's one where I fell through the cracks. So I struggled throughout my childhood for as long as I can remember, from as early as I could remember. I remember sort of being 4 or 5 years old, standing in the playground, looking at my peers, and wondering how on earth they were managing to talk to one another so easily when I had no idea what was going on. But I managed to keep my struggles quiet, not intentionally. It's just because I had no way of expressing myself until about the age of 12, where I experienced my first shutdown burnout. I did a community play, which was the probably the best thing that I've ever done in my life. Like I peaked at age 12 and but it was every day, and for a few weeks, and after that I got very ill. I had no energy. I couldn't sleep, but I had no energy to move, and I stopped eating, and so that was when people first became aware of the fact that I was struggling. And since then, really, there's been psychologists, therapy, medication, all sorts of different things to try and fix me. Nothing has ever really fit. So I was diagnosed with ME when I was 12. I went to school part-time because of it. I left before my GCSEs. I tried to work. I never got on well in jobs. It was all far too exhausting, really. I got to my early 30s after I had a child, and just continued to struggle. And I came across something called PDA on one of my internet searches, and I was reading it and I was like, okay, this looks like me, tick this box, okay. So off I trot to the doctor and show him this list, and he said, well, if you're PDA, then that means you're autistic, so let's send you for an assessment. He just kind of qualified all my answers straight away and sent me off, and exactly a year later I had my certificate. It's not really a certificate, but
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. And yeah, that was, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah.
And when you said you were struggling, if you're okay talking about it, as a
Yeah.
child, because again, I have those memories too. I think when we, one autistic person talks, we're all like, yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Standing on the edge of the playground, or
Yeah.
just kind of not, can you remember how that felt? Like being on the outside.
Yeah. I was thinking about that earlier, actually. And it's really hard to describe. I think because being so young, we haven't developed the appropriate language to assign to the feelings that we have.
Yeah.
So as a child, I had these feelings, and even as an adult looking back, it's hard to kind of assign a name to them. But I think most closely was confusion and isolation. Like, I felt different, and I was confused as to why I was like this. Why me? What is it about me that makes me so clearly different to these other people? And yet they didn't really know. They knew, but they didn't really know. It's like I look like everybody else, and I sort of sound like everybody else, but on some level they knew that I was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that plays a big part in our isolation. We know other people. Why do we feel different in the first place?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, how are the people reacting to us in a different way than they're reacting to the other group of people? And we get messages that tell us we're different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The frowning faces at you when you say something that you think is the same as what everybody else has said, and then all of a sudden everybody stops talking.
Yeah.
And they frown at you, and they're like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're constantly being looked at like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is hard to come up with words for these feelings. Like, the only way what I felt like, as a kid and as an adult in many situations, I just felt small. That kind of, for me, that's kind of, and you see, you got it straight away.
Yeah, insignificant.
Yeah, and just as I could feel myself physically shrinking nearly inside, if I was trying to talk to somebody, because I think we're picking up, well, for me, it's literally picking up how they're viewing you, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that your reaction is to like shrink away and hide, protect yourself. Yeah, I think that's kind of how I that's the only word. I don't think there is a feeling to kind of explain it really.
Yeah, it's definitely very difficult to describe it. I think if you've experienced it, then you'll know exactly what it feels like. But to explain it to somebody that hasn't, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we don't have words for a lot of stuff that autistic people are, in autistic spaces. It's always like, it's like this, or it's like when you, it's like, because there's no language there for this, no words there for this, and that's why we were all like just using hand signals and I get it. And then like when you went on to say work life, you said it was like exhausting. Like what parts of it were exhausting?
Well, what I now know to be masking, I had to try so hard to fit in. And now I've said this to lots of people throughout my life, I don't fit in. And I think the assumption that, or there is an assumption when you say this to people, that they think you mean, well, I don't like all the same things that other people like, or maybe I wear different clothes and so I don't fit in. And that's not how I was trying to fit in. I was trying to fit in the sense that I was attempting to communicate in the same way that the other people were communicating, joke in the same way, laugh at the appropriate points.
Whatever that means. Whatever that means. Laughing.
Exactly.
At appropriate
just,
times.
you know, is like trial and error, sort of, well, I've laughed then and people frown at me, and I laughed then and everybody else laughed as well, so okay, and then you try it again and it just doesn't work the same. It's a complete minefield. But yeah, definitely the masking was the exhausting thing, trying to exist unnoticed.
And how would you describe masking? You know, there's so many different definitions of it or ways of describing it. How would you describe it? What was it like, you know, if you had to try and explain it to somebody?
It was, I'm using past tense. That's interesting. I guess that means that I'm doing less of it now. I mean, apart from the fact that we've spent a whole year kind of not talking to anybody else, helps probably. A survival. It's a coping mechanism, but more than a coping mechanism, it was a survival mechanism. Without learning how to mask, I would have been completely exposed, and that would have been incredibly dangerous for me, because of my sensitivity.
Yeah, I think you've used some really powerful words. I would identify with those as well. It was for survival. It was a way of protecting myself. And it was like literally putting a fortress around me for the same reasons, because I felt too exposed. I didn't want people knowing the real me because I had to protect the real me. You know what I mean? I suppose it's when you're young, you're open to such ridicule, I think, and you are picking up these messages from people, and you have to protect yourself from that. And I think, it is absolutely a survival technique. And it's interesting that you said it would be dangerous. Do you want to expand a little bit on that? What do you mean by?
Well, being exposed and having people realize that I was different would open the door for them to question my difference. What's wrong with you, for example? And I'm incredibly sensitive, and to have people talk to me in that way is incredibly damaging. and also not knowing myself what was wrong with me. I had no way to fix it. I had no way of knowing. And the fear, I think, that kind of sat within me hidden was that I was completely defective and a bad person. And if they found out, then I would be outcast, hated. All of these horrible things would happen to me if people found out how defective I really was.
Yeah, it just yes, I can I totally understand everything you're saying, and I just think it's important that we talk about these things, because we've spent our lifetimes thinking that we are bad, we're we have something to hide, that being sensitive is a bad thing, that being autistic is a bad thing, caring about other people, responding to things, in a really empathetic way is a bad thing, and it's like, where did we get these messages? And it's like, well, as a young kid, if you're, you do something, you're like, oh, stop overreacting, or you're always so dramatic, or it's not
that hot. No, it's not that hot. It's fine. Just eat it. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, put your coat on. It's cold. No, it's not. It's cold. Put your coat on. It's cold. No, like that. With your coat on, It's like feeling like you're being attacked because you've got your sleeves up here. It's like,
yeah. And you know, earlier you said, you know, you fell through the cracks, and I think a lot of us and a lot of girls are still going to fall through cracks. And to me, it kind of, the impression I get from, you know, talking to, you know, schools and parents and teachers and, you know, and from working with kids myself, is that if someone kind of is well behaved, let's say, you know, or isn't exploding, then there's no need, because it's not interrupting the school day, you know, because unfortunately that's our focus, you know, in schools, is to get these kids to sit down and be quiet and do what they're supposed to do, rather than kind of their well-being, I find a lot of the time, unfortunately. So like, I get the impression that you were like me, you kind of kept everything inside.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yes. I learnt how to stealth stim by tensing every muscle in my body, tensing it and crossing my legs so tightly so that I didn't move about all the time. And yeah, I managed to stealth my way through school. And I was unnoticed.
And do you think there were signs, Hollie? Like if you experienced burnout at 12, there must have been telltale signs along up, you know, for other people, because I think we can mask, you know, all of our difficulties, and we can protect ourselves, but there are signs that people are struggling. I that's, you know, my belief. I think if we look close enough.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is yes, there probably were signs, but unless you're in a position where people are able to see those signs, then it doesn't really matter. This is something I've thought about at great length and depth. I think quite a lot of the professional people that I was involved with saw that there was something, but I think they made assumptions that were completely incorrect. But at the time, I don't think there would be any way for anything to be any different.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be possible for, you know, there was so much bad advice given to so many people around me. And yeah, but there would have been signs. Yeah, of course there would have been signs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a part of having these conversations is kind of, you know, letting people know that there are signs to what to look out for, you know. Because I think that whole kind of like idea of the good girl, or, you know, the kid who, you know, just is going through school without any issues, you know, any kind of in the classroom or whatever. Just people, it's not, we're just under the radar, aren't we? And
completely.
Like, yeah,
completely.
You know, and it does take, I think, probably someone like you know, a sensitive person to pick up on that, you know.
Yes.
And I know I had teachers who were probably autistic, you know, who I just had a really good relationship with, which kind of sustained me, I think, a lot of the time, and through school, you know. But you know, and I suppose you've done a lot now since you were diagnosed about educating other people about all this kind of thing. So you have some advocacy pages set up. You've done some pretty cool stuff. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? So how you're going to change the future for the rest of.
Well, yeah. I have a page called "I Am the Face of Autism," which I'm thinking about changing, but I'm not sure yet. It started off as an idea for a video that I had. I was on the bus on the way to work one day, and all of a sudden I had this thought about how well, you don't look, but you don't look autistic. And then I thought to myself, I'd spent like a year and a half really delving into the autistic community and reading stories about all the different people that are autistic. And then I had this video just played in my head of all the different types of people that there are, saying that, well, you know, I'm the face of autism. This is what autism looks like. This is what an autistic person looks like. And it would illustrate the fact that actually you go out into the world and anybody you come across at any point in time could be autistic.
Yeah.
Like anybody.
That's such an amazing idea. Because
yeah.
you know, people say that kind of thing, oh, you don't look autistic, which means, you know, if you kind of like scratch beneath the surface, it's like, well, what do you think autistic people look like? And they're like, well, not me, and you look like me, so, you know. But it's like, how many autistic people have you seen? You know, and they're like, 1, 2. I'm sorry, I watched Rain Man.
I was gonna say, I watched a film about a guy.
Yeah. You don't look like him. Amazing. And amazingly, autistic adults do not look like autistic children. It's crazy.
Yes. Yeah, it's and so I created a page with the idea that I was gonna, you know, collect all these faces, like not literally. That's creepy and weird. And I haven't done it yet, but I've told bits of my story. I've told bits of other people's stories, or I've, you know, given a place for other people to tell their stories a bit. And it has no cohesive theme. My page is completely chaotic. I post really sporadically. Some days I'll post like 400 things in the space of 3 days, and then I'll go for a few weeks without sharing anything.
Is it like your outlet? Because I know for me, when I set up my page originally, it was my outlet to kind of, it was the first place I think I was me in the world. It was like, this is where I can be me and share with other people. And like that, it could be just whatever I was thinking through at the time, you know, was what I was putting on my page.
Yeah. And it's also a way to connect.
Yeah.
You know, I have these thoughts and I come to realizations and things of the you know, and I'll write it, put it out there, and then people kind of say, wow, yeah, it's like that for me too. And so it's like a double benefit thing, you know. That makes me feel great because I don't feel so alone, and also there's other people out there that feel the same way. And so yeah, it's nice. I'm starting to think a little bit more seriously about affecting some measurable change. I don't know if that's the right word.
Because well, I know when we talked before, you had like you had started on a autistic
kit,
which I think is just a fantastic resource. So tell me what's happening with that at the moment.
Well, it's still completely lodged on the shelf, covered in dust. But yeah, the idea behind that is it's basically a toolkit for autistic people, primarily for autistic people, but non-autistic people would probably find benefit there too. That will collate resources from autistic people about how to be autistic, how to live and kind of honor that that way that we are. But it's such a big thing because, you know, the way that I'm autistic is my lens, and you know, there's infinite amount of other ways.
You had some really cool ideas about like those of us who have poor executive function or issues, you know. It was you, I think, was it? Had you taken all the doors off your
Maybe.
presses, or had
Oh,
you?
yeah. So things like that. I had such trouble keeping things tidy, putting things away, and I realized, probably through something that I read on the internet, that when things are behind doors or in drawers, they cease to exist. Simply opening a door and putting something in it is just one step too far. It's just one step too many. And when my brain is tired, it's like, no, just put it on the floor. It's much easier. And then I thought, what's the point in trying really, really hard to change me so that I can put things behind doors? Why don't I just take the doors off?
Yeah.
And then I don't have to worry. And then instead of putting it on the floor, I can just put it in the shelf. Yeah, and so I've changed like all of my furniture. I've got cubes now. We put all our clothes in cubes, and hanging rails. There's no doors.
Yeah,
No
I mean,
doors.
you're taking a lot of stress out of your life, because that can be stressful, you know. And
Yeah.
I know it depends on the day I'm having, you know, and kind of what I'm working on, how I'm feeling. But like, I can go to the fridge and open it, and like nothing there looks like food.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have like a list that's
Yeah.
like lunches, crackers, cheese, you know, literally. I'm just, oh yeah, because I get, and sometimes I will forget to eat if I'm, you know, if I'm working on something or I'm excited about something. I'll totally forget, and then I'm gone beyond the stage of thinking. So it's like, I just need to, I need someone to feed me.
Yeah, essentially that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so this site would be a collection of all of these types of things, for things that people have found helpful for themselves, that they can pop in there and people can go, oh, that would work for me.
Yeah.
But it's still shelved at the moment. But one day,
you
one
know.
day.
Yeah. It sounds amazing. And if people were interested maybe in helping make this happen, or if they wanted to get involved, so is the best way to contact you through your Facebook page?
Yeah.
Which is I am Face of Awesome.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And I know one of your kind of main focuses as well as an advocate is looking at maybe schools and better education. You know, obviously I can see why, because of your own experience.
Yeah.
And what kind of things do you think, you know, schools should know more about, or where is the gap maybe in their understanding? Where's the education?
This is kind of where I'm hoping to do some like in real life work as opposed to internet work, which is a really weird way of putting it as well, because just because something's on Facebook, it doesn't mean it's not real life, like, yeah. You know, but I think you know what I mean. Yeah, schools. So my experience through school was really difficult, and then I have a child who I'm witnessing go through school, and many of the experiences that they're having are similar to mine, and I have been thinking really hard about how to fix these things. I've been so lucky that the schools have been incredibly like willing to help, and their intentions are so you know, good, and that's a huge portion of the battle. Not that it is a battle, but it is a battle for a lot of people, I know that. And so I've been really, really lucky in that regard. and so having those doors open, knowing that I can communicate, I've been thinking really hard about what is it that needs to change, because I see so many people having individual supports for their children, and I know how much stress and pressure that is for the parents, how othering it must be for the children when they're with their peers and, you know, they're being treated differently, and how much extra energy and stress and pressure that must be for the teachers too, because they've got all of these individual things. And so there has to be a way where something can change that will work for everybody. Every school has to have an accessibility policy. I don't know how many schools have a neurodiversity branch in that accessibility policy. If you have kids at schools, check their websites and have a look. Tell me, feedback to me, please. I'd like to know. I suspect that it's not many. And so I've been thinking, what would a neurodiversity or a neurodivergent accessibility policy look like? And then all of the problems that I see in the way that the school, it's like glitter. So, like, glitter for a lot of people is really great. It's all sparkly and it's so much fun. And if you chuck it everywhere and put it on everything, then it's going to make everybody really happy because everything's covered in glitter. But glitter's really bad for the environment. And when you realize it's bad, it's like you can't take out each individual grain of glitter to remove it. But you're still chucking glitter out, and you're chucking glitter out, and you're trying to pick the bits of glitter out and get rid of it. And then we'll stop the glitter getting on the kids. We'll dress them in PPE. You just got to stop throwing glitter everywhere.
That's a really, really good analogy.
Yeah. And it very much feels like the mindset at the moment is to stop glitter getting on these children, is to dress them in PPE, when really we need to just stop chucking glitter everywhere and just stop doing that.
I think a lot of these policies are just tick box exercises. You know, it's like, oh yeah, inclusion. Oh yeah, we had someone talk about that. Oh yeah, you know, it's literally just tick boxes, and they're not working on the ground. And I mean, neurodiversity includes every single person, you know. Yes. It's not just neurodivergent people.
Yes.
And I don't think schools work for a lot of kids. The only way I see it, you know, to be truly inclusive is to offer choice.
Yes.
It's the only way.
Yes. And to really know that that people are different. Yeah. To actually really know that. And to know that people are different on a far deeper level than what they wear, what music they like, you know, what foods they like, and that kind of thing. People are different on a, you know, thinking level.
Yeah. And even on a, you know, on an emotional level, or, yes. You know, I mean,
processing.
Yeah. And if we're sensitive, we're going to, you know, our emotions are going to, you know, we're going to operate on a different emotional level to other people. Things are going to affect us that don't affect other people, you know. And I don't think there is a true understanding of that, actually.
No, I don't think there is either. And it's such a shame, because I see so many schools working really, really hard, like promoting good mental health and well-being, for example. And and they just end up unknowingly to them promoting masking.
Yeah.
Smile, and then you'll be happy.
Oh, is that all I needed to do? Oh, okay. I just need to smile.
Yeah.
If only someone had.
And unfortunately, some of the messages that they're pushing out, believing that are really, really good and helpful, and they're gonna stop kids feeling so anxious and stuff, are just going to increase anxiety.
Absolutely. Like, I think there's just a lot of mixed messages going out to children.
Yeah.
On the one hand, yeah, you've got Mental Health Day. Let's all wear orange today. Well, that's what we do here because it's Mental Health Day. But yet they're using like behavioral approaches in the classroom, rewards and punishments, and these are psychological approaches that you're using, and they're because somebody somewhere approved them. There doesn't seem to be a fundamental understanding of how behaviorism works and what you're reinforcing. There just doesn't, it's kind of like, oh, it's okay, we'll just give them stickers for doing this. And it's like, well, do you understand the messages that the kids are getting? Do you understand the damage this can do? And people don't, unless I think, they've had an experience of masking. And we know it, these things reinforce, our need to protect ourselves a lot of the time. And to
they do. Yeah, they do, because not only is they just do.
Yeah.
And also, one thing keeps coming back in my mind. I spent 33 years of my life not knowing I was autistic. And many people spend many more years of their lives not realizing that they are autistic. And then I look around at everybody else, and how many more autistic people are there that are walking around feeling like crap because they're autistic and they don't know. Like,
that's the thing, there are so many of us, so many of us, and I think those of us that do find out are lucky, because I'd hate to have gone through, my whole life not knowing this about me, and it has changed completely how I feel about myself, how would you describe what being autistic actually is, because obviously I don't think you're a fan of the deficit model. Here's all the things we can't do, which actually that's not true anyway. But how would you describe, in your own words, what it is to be autistic? Because I think sometimes people have an idea that they, I can't be an autistic woman because I, have a family.
I don't like trains. I can't be autistic because I don't like trains.
Yeah. So what do you think this, let's leave this with kind of, I suppose if someone is watching this, maybe kind of thinking, maybe I am, and they're identifying with some of it, how would you describe what it really means to be autistic for, as an autistic woman? Or how did you realize you were autistic?
There was a really clear turning point, actually. For many years, I thought that I could be autistic because I identified with a lot. But, and I think I wrote a post about this a little while ago, I didn't feel special enough. And that plays into so many really harmful ideas that I'd collected along the way, that somehow autistic people were really clever and they had this special gift that they could do, incredible maths. It's just like, now I know so much, and I look back and I think, oh my God. Or they're like incredibly talented with musical instruments and things like this. And I thought, well, no, I identify with most of it, but I don't have a superpower. I'm not gifted. And then it was a BBC Three Shorts thing that I watched, and there was I think it was like 6 autistic people just sat down in pairs, opening bits of paper, like what not to say to an autistic person. And I was watching it and I just thought, well, they're just the normal people.
Yeah.
In my really, like, you know, unknowingly kind of, with all my harmful ideas that I'd collected, I was like, well, they're just normal people. They sound and talk just like this, just like I do. So perhaps you don't have to have some really special talent, or, you know, some huge collection of something like, yeah. So what does it mean to be autistic? Well, it's normal.
Yeah.
It's just normal. It's just a different variation of a normal human being, in my opinion. Yeah, and autistic people have got all of the range of people that are not autistic in exactly the same way. Some autistic people are disabled, some autistic people aren't. Some non-autistic people are disabled, some non-autistic people aren't. It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah.
In my mind. I'm welcome to differing opinions, obviously, because that's what it's all about, I think.
Well, I mean, and I think, you know, I would have the same opinion that it is a variation of, just to be, you know, it's part of being human, that we are different in different ways. And, you know, we're, I mean, that's what neurodiversity is, that we're not supposed to actually all think the same, you know. We're meant to be different, and that's quite a normal part of being human, you know. Yeah. Holly, I think that's, yeah, I think looking at it as a normal, that we're just normal people.
Yes.
Others the whole way through our lives, you know. I thank you so much for talking today. I, you know, wish you lots of luck with your the autistic kit. I just like, such a great idea. Maybe it'll spark a bit more motivation now today.
Yeah, hopefully, if anybody wants to, you know, put some stuff in these boxes, then that would be great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing. I think we're so creative. And well, I know for me as well, it's like, oh, you know, I get an idea, and if I don't do it there and then, you know, it's like, oh, you know, because I'll do it in 6 months' time. My enthusiasm, I have to work off the emotion, because it's the result of an emotion. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
If I leave something going like
it's
that,
driven by emotion.
Yeah, some people call that impulsivity, but I'm like,
oh, that's what that is. Now I know.
But again, it's looking at it as in like, oh, you can't control your. It's like, well, actually, it's because I am riding this wave of emotion.
Yeah.
The end result of all of these thoughts and things I've been processing. Here it is. If I don't do something about it now, I won't care about it, you know, later on.
And and that emotion makes it whole. I think that's what makes good art.
Yeah.
The emotion that's put into it. If it's just technique, then it could be good, but it's missing something. Really, really good art, it includes the emotion. So yeah.
And I think that's something that, as sensitive people, we pick up on and we appreciate, maybe where other people miss out on that as well. Yeah. In my opinion. Thanks again for chatting with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we can catch up again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Hollie.